Okay, so the next thing we're going to cover here is basic audio mixing. Here we have a news segment that was put together with some talking heads that are the politicians and leaders of the state of Florida talking about Hurricane Irene. This is mixed in with some B-roll shots of people preparing for the hurricane and some news coverage of the hurricane going on. The talking heads of the politicians are all here on the A1 track and the V1 track, and then the B-roll shots of the people and stuff are up on the V2 track, and then down here on the A1 track. So the first thing that we're going to do is go through and try to balance all the audio between the speakers here. When I say the speakers, I mean between the politicians that are addressing the media. So we've got some buttons here that can mute tracks, and that would mute that whole track. And then we've also got some here that's what is called solo. And solo turns off every other track except the track that's soloed. Now you can solo more than one track, so if I soloed both of these, I would have both of these on, but every other track, if there were more tracks, would be off except for these two. So we're going to start off with just soloing just this track, and we're going to watch the audio levels and try to balance the audio levels between each person that's speaking here. So let's watch the levels here. What we're trying to do is get them to balance somewhere between -12 and -6 on average. That's kind of where it wants to be.
Yesterday, I signed an executive order that declared a state of emergency in Florida, and this declaration is helping the emergency management teams across.
So this first clip of Governor Bush is looking pretty good. Let's go into the second clip. It's also of Bush.
Across the state. The major threat from Hurricane Irene continues to be.
All of this was recorded at the same time, so that audio is well balanced. And what we're trying to make sure is that as we go into the next speaker, that we're in a similar level here.
Rainfall.
South Florida has received between 6 to 8 inches of rain already from the system, and it's possible we could see an additional 10 to 15 inches of rainfall.
I think the big thing that we'll be focused on here, obviously, as the tornadoes, but the big thing will be the flooding.
Big threat for most people in South Florida is the rain, but not on the West Coast. They'll certainly get the rain, but the big threat there is.
All right, this gentleman's a little tiny bit low, so what we're going to do is adjust these clips right inside here. Now when this audio is closed up, you can't see any of this detail, you can't see much about the waveforms, and you can't see much about how to edit any of this stuff with your mouse. But if you open up these audio tracks a bit, then you get this access here. As you touch this line here, it's the volume line, and you can raise or lower the volume here. Now he just needs to come up a little bit, so we're going to raise him, push this line up a little bit, and as you can see, you get this feedback. I've just raised him 2.18 dB, so let's leave him there and see how he comes in.
Big threat for most people in South Florida is the rain, but not on the West Coast. They'll certainly get the rain, but the big threat there is the
And he's looking pretty good. Let's move on to the next one.
storm surge.
Now's the time to ask people to please.
This gentleman's also a little bit low, so we're going to raise him up. Now we'll go another 2 dB or so. Now, once you get it down, it gets a little tough to get particular numbers in here. If you hold down the control key on the PC or the command key on the Mac, it gives you a little bit more fine control here. So let's go 2.1. Raise the other one 2.18. So let's raise this one about 2.9 or so. Let's see what we get out of that.
Now's the time to ask people to please put themselves in.
Still a little tiny bit low, so let's bring him up to about 3, a little over 3 dB, maybe 3.14.
Now's the time to ask people to please put themselves and their families.
Still a little tiny bit low, so let's take him up to like 4.15 maybe. 4.16, that's good.
To ask people to please put themselves and their families out of harm's way, get in a safe location, and ride this storm out.
He sounded good. Now we got the last clip of this woman who was in a shelter.
We made it through the night, so we thank the Lord for that.
Very slightly low, so let's raise her up about 3 dB or so. 3.18.
We made it through the night, so we thank the Lord for that.
Okay, so we've got a pretty good balance and a pretty good levels on all our talking heads. Now we're going to turn off this solo button, and what we want to do is get a decent balance happening between all these B-roll shots. So let's go ahead and set them all to a similar level. Let's turn on the solo on the B-roll audio and see what kind of levels we're getting. Now this is going to be underneath the talking heads, so we're going to mix it to a slightly different level. We're going to go between, let's say, between -18 and -24, somewhere in there.